Mic check 1 2. I'd also like to ask, as a courtesy to all, please ensure that you have silenced your cell phones. Each director received notice of this committee meeting. The public meeting notice was properly posted as required by law. All committee members indicated that they would be present for this meeting. At this point in the meeting, we have set aside time to hear from you, the general public. Those of you that are interested in providing comments filled out one of the cards available at the reception's desk, and will be called to make your comments at this time. We have no requests. Seeing that no one wishes to speak, we'll move forward on the agenda. Item 1 on the agenda is a report and possible discussion on the property management database development update by Mr. Blake Kettler, Technical Services Manager. Blake?
Well, thank you. Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. Today I'm going to provide just a very brief update on where we are with development of the property management database. As you recall, the property management database was kind of the first part of the property initiative set by the Property Management Committee. Basically, what we were doing was organizing all of VRA's property holdings and associated documents. As you can see here, this is an overview of the scope of services to complete that task. If you look at the x-axis across the top, this gives you a timeline of basically going from left to right on where we are to complete those tasks. On the y-axis, down the side, are the tasks associated with completing that. The green O's, as you can see right here, was the original start dates contemplated for the scope of services, with the red X's being the original completion date. What you're seeing here in these colors is the actual duration it took to complete those tasks. So we did go over on duration to complete those tasks, but I think the driver there was a lot more information than what we expected whenever we developed the scope of services. Kind of what we noticed, it was like peeling back an onion. Every time you started to dig into something, you peel a layer back and you find more documents, more information, things that need to be documented through the database. So, which is good. That's, that makes the system more robust. It allows us to be more efficient and have that information at our fingertips when we need it. Everything to the left of the red line here has been completed to date. To the right is what we have left to complete. We're shooting for end of April timeline to complete. So basically we're at the point of rolling out that database to the users, providing training for our folks. So getting our administrators up to speed so they can add, delete properties, they can add documents and everything associated with properties or take things out. So we've been providing that training. We've also been rolling it out to the end users. For the most part, we've met with Possum Kingdom, Granbury, and Limestone, and the feedback's been greatly received. Everybody sees the value of this system and what it adds to the organization. So with that, I'll take any questions if you have them. Yes, ma'am.
Will you go back to your grid?
I will.
So the purpose of the start and stop in between is what?
So let me look here. It's related to when the information was coming in. So we started development of the web map. Well, we found some more different search parameters and things like that we needed. So we would go back out, get that information under task. In these earlier tasks here, we'd go back out and get that information, and we'd pick back up on the web development or those tasks towards the end of the scope services.
So like number 12, I think.
The web map and mobile training.
So if you go across, you've X'd where you've ended it, where you've completed it, and then there's a break, and then it's restarting again. So is it really completed, or did y'all
Yes, it is complete. So the red X indicates the original duration set forth in the scope of services of the contract. So basically, we would start development there, and then we'd realize, okay, there's some other things that we could include in this database. So we basically hold up on completing the web map, run back out, go get that information, and then that's where you're seeing the second part of those durations pick up.
So that stuff is already done?
Yes, everything to the left is complete. The only thing that's still ongoing is here to the right. Any other questions?
Yeah. So all of this went over the original end date. What's the impact that we need to think about? I mean, or know about? Did it increase costs, or is it going to delay anything else? Or
No, we have a not to exceed set within the contract, so no additional cost. Basically, the only impact some additional time, but we're almost to the completion there, so yeah, it shouldn't be any major impacts.
Okay.
I have another question.
Cynthia?
So what is the, so do we hold that data now, or does HAF still have that data?
We're in the process of handing that over to BRA. So once we reach the completion here, that will be in BRA's hands. We'll own it. We'll develop it. From that point further, we'll be able to add, delete, whatever we need to do to, to have that system up and running for our organization.
So at this point, we don't hold anything?
Yes, that process is going on. Basically, they've developed it under GIS, and they're in the process of handing that over to our administrators.
So when you're done, you'll have a product that's completely independent of any outside consultant for BRA to manage and use at our discretion.
That's correct.
Okay.
Blake, I'm sorry, the other questions? Blake, we've got at least one new member on the committee. Can you back up just a bit and maybe give us an overview of exactly what it is we're going to have when HAF is finished with this project?
Sure. So what we're looking at creating here is basically an interactive database, and it's going to be accessible from everything from your cell phone to your tablet, real time for folks out there in the field. So when they're meeting with property owners, they can go in. It's like a souped up Google Earth, basically. You can zoom in, you can look at property boundaries, you can look at documents associated with the property. If we have easements or deeds or whatever it may be, all that will be at the click of a button to where they can look at that property or that information real time. So these are the tasks associated with developing that, and that's what we executed a contract with HAF back in July timeframe for us to develop that, and that's what we're working on currently. Yes, sir.
Wes?
Remind me, do we intend to have like access to the public access through the website to this, or is it like?
Right now, it's set up to be an internal tool. I don't know that it was contemplated for it to go external for public access, but if that's something we need to, I guess as we get in there, get comfortable with the system, if we see a value for that, we could always look at somehow using it for that setup.
I'm not advocating for that. Just to be clear, either way. But I just couldn't remember what the discussion was back then. Like a lot of state agencies, you can go, like the Railroad Commission has a GIS web viewer on their website. You can go look, drill down on the wells, pull up the documents for oil and gas, production. I'm not sure we need that or want that, but
the way it's set up right now is just for internal. This is to provide folks out there on the pipeline, wherever, when they see somebody, they feel they're getting close to our easement, they can pull up those documents and understand what our easement looks like, or folks dealing with property at one of our reservoirs. If they have a discrepancy, something like that, they can pull that information to support it.
Wait a minute. Director Savage, I think, had a question, then we'll come to you.
We're working, like Matt's on this committee for the floodplain development. Will that, is there a plan to integrate that in as additional information comes in?
So there is flood mapping as part of this database. The flood planning stuff, we have the ability to add information as we move forward. So that's one of the requirements for this, is hey, we need this basically free and clear and the ability to be able to develop it further in the future. So depending what comes out of that, if it adds value on what we're doing on the property database, we can add that information.
But Blake, what's the information that you're adding are the floodplains and the areas that become inundated.
Correct.
The process that the group is going through is identifying projects for funding for future projects. So our database won't be as sensitive or concerned with future projects for flooding, other than we can identify those areas that flood. Is that
Yes,
correct?
That's
Okay.
correct. I mean, if you wanted to, say you've got a piece of property that could be impacted by a project potentially, you could attach that plan as a reference point. But the overall goal is just looking at it from a property perspective.
Director Taylor?
Like, this seems to be a voluminous amount of information that would be commercially viable to real estate and appraisers and brokers. Could this be an income source where they could, for a subscription fee, be accessible to this data? I mean, it's like this would save them a tremendous amount of time in their property searches and stuff.
We could evaluate that. I think right now the main goal was just, we had information here at central office, out at the lakes, at the courthouses recorded. It was all over the place. So trying to get us efficient as possible when dealing with these property matters. So when we get an inquiry or something like that, it's not days or weeks of us gathering the information. We've got that real time, and we can hopefully get them an answer that day. So, there may potentially be a benefit to that, and that's something, we can evaluate once we get comfortable using the system. But the main goal right now was just to make us more efficient on that front. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Through the process, did y'all find that you were missing many documents? Is there a lot of kind of going back and plugging in some holes and maybe finding old deeds or anything to that respect?
Sure. John, can you touch on that a bit for us?
Yeah, the only document. Sorry about that, David. The only documents may be missing are in my office, and they're on me constantly they're all scanned in our permanent record, but sometimes I borrow one out of the file, and you have to print out card, which I've done, but they may be in my office, but we haven't found any missing documents. And some of them are quite old. Record keeping around here is really good.
I have a question.
Feel better now. We know.
Director Flores had a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So Blake, moving forward, clearly after today, this doesn't end. You're going to continue to learn about different properties. So who owns that responsibility to continue putting things into the system?
We do. So
Who's we?
Yes, we own it free and clear. If we wanted to, look for an opportunity, if there was something like something we weren't able or capable of taking on in house, we own that system free and clear. We could potentially look for.
Okay, so in-house, who is we?
Oh, that's our property folks, our GIS department, our points of contact out at the lakes that deal with property. So it's a group effort.
Okay, so they know that?
Yes.
Okay.
Blake, let me give you a specific example, because my question is very similar to that of Director Flores. Let's take a real world example and consider the airport property up at Possum Kingdom for just a minute. And we know, well, I say we know, I would think that we may have to get some special expertise, for instance, maybe an airport expert, but we would have within the database all of the information that's available to the BRA, and then we could go secure that expert independent of having to do anything with HAF or anybody else. In other words, it would be totally a BRA effort. Is that correct?
That's correct. So we'd have all that information, couple clicks, pull that up. If we're looking for a consultant, someone else, we could provide that and they could go in and evaluate.
Okay, or if we wanted to study a piece of property at Lake Granbury, we could do that, and we'd be able to go and look for specific, if we had to have technical expertise that was beyond the scope of what the BRA had in-house, we could go secure those experts from wherever we needed.
Yes, sir. And anything that developed out of that process, we could then take it and tag it to that property.
Okay.
For
And then-
reference.
And then the information that those experts gathered would become part of this database.
Yes, sir.
Very well. Any other questions? I would suggest that probably this committee ought to reconvene when you've got the finished product. And I think it'd be a great idea for us to have a demonstration so that we can actually see it functioning. Is that possible?
Yes, we can set that up for May, if timing allows, and do that then.
Okay. Could we do that and get it on the program? Absolutely. All right. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item 2 on the agenda is a report and possible discussion on property management approach by Mr. David Collinsworth, General Manager, CEO, and Matt Phillips, Legislative and Governmental Affairs Manager for the BRA.
Thank you. Good to see you all this morning. Do what? I didn't know I was on it. You're on the agenda.
It's good to be seen.
It's good to be seen. So we're really excited about where we are in place and time with the database. Having properties that we acquired back in the 40s and 50s and 60s, when there were other plans of action, whether they were to build all of the main stem reservoirs that never were built, or some of the challenges that we had acquiring property around all of our reservoir sites. So our staff sees that this database is going to be a really informational tool to help us deal with the daily phone calls that come in about our property, people asking questions, easements, right-of-ways, all those type things, boundaries. It's also going to be a really wonderful tool to have for future planning purposes. And we think as a staff, we're at a really unique milestone and have an opportunity with this tool to step back and assess the tool, really dig into it, figure out how to use it. And then also, we think we have some low-hanging fruit in properties that we're really, really familiar with and understand that we're not going to need moving forward in the future. So our thought process is, once we develop this tool and bring it to you in May and show you how it works, then begin the process of understanding how we're going to divest of these properties, and then bringing some of those low-hanging fruit properties to you to begin to get rid of. And right now, the properties that we're looking at are properties that are floodplain properties that have flowage easements, that are properties particularly that separate landowners from either the river or water bodies. So that's kind of what our thought process is going forward. Instead of completing a really complete phase 2 work plan and getting into evaluating all of the properties of the BRA, let's look at the tool, use it, help define and figure out what the process looks like for divesting of some of the properties that are properties that we're really confident that we're not going to need in the future, and then working with you to refine and develop that process. Anything to add?
I just think there are some that, there are properties that we've either been approached about or that we know about that we feel confident enough as a staff to be able to look at and make a recommendation to you all on what we should do with them without having to do a big, robust phase 2 process. I think there are others that are a little bit bigger that, we may want to, that we get approached about people wanting to purchase, that instead of staff making a recommendation, we've actually thought about the possibility of telling those interested parties to come present to this committee what they want to do. And then this committee can tell us if you want us to evaluate it and look at it, and then we can do that. If we need to get expertise from outside, we could go do that and then kind of move forward. But I think what we would like to do is at least test the process with some of these that we know of, bringing them to y'all, making a recommendation. That recommendation then goes to the board, just seeing what that looks like.
So more of a hybrid approach.
So, just to not confuse, this committee wasn't established to just look at divesting a property. So I just want to make sure that that's not necessarily the priority of what this committee is for, not to see, oh, what property can we sell off, sell off, sell off. It's more so, people have been coming to us about possibly interested in a property here or there, and this is a way for us to evaluate to determine whether or not, how we're going to respond to them. So I know that whenever the committee first started, when this committee was first established, there was a lot of new board members, and so I think the perception was it was to see about prioritizing and selling off, but that's not necessarily what this committee is for.
And Director Flores, I completely appreciate that comment, and you're spot on. We know that we have properties that we will recommend to you now that we want to divest of, and then we have properties that we know now that we do not want to divest of, and then there's some there in the middle that we'll have to just take time to evaluate to figure out what's in the best interest of the BRA as far as those assets. And Chairman Lattimore, I think your point earlier was spot on. When we get to talking about things, and there may be properties that have environmental significance that we need help assessing, we would certainly want to bring in somebody from the outside that had years of managing and selling and purchasing airports before we went down the road of looking at what's the best use of that property for the future.
And I only picked that as an example. Are there questions?
Look forward to seeing the product.
We do too. Thank you.
Very well. Anything else?
No, sir.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. I have nothing further on the agenda. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn at this time. I have a motion by Director Luton and a second by Director Savage. All in favor? Any opposed? With no further business before the committee, will adjourn the meeting at 8:22 a.m.